Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hope everyone's having a great day on Earth today in their physical bodies.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Make yourselves comfortable. Grab a cup of tea, whatever you need. Well, I'm going to get started here, 7 o'clock. And tonight should be a fun night for anybody. Everybody loves questions and answers. And this is questions and answers from Robert Monroe's book, Far Journeys. So these are questions that are brought up to him and answered at the end of the book. And we'll go over that together and discuss it as we go down it. All right, so we'll do a round of introductions. You don't have to have an introduction if you don't like to. You can just pass. Otherwise, you can, if you want, say where you're from and maybe share an out-of-body experience or a question with the group. Easy as that. So I'm Juice out of New York. Been interested in astral projection, out-of-body experiences and stuff since, gosh, over 20 years, since I was 13, close to 30 years now. And with mixed experiences, I'm the type of person that needs to do a lot of work to experience an out-of-body experience. And I work hard at it. And I enjoy hosting things like this to get the fire burning and have other people join in and help them and they help me. Can't lose. Win-win situation. So right now I'm working on the Gateway program, a Robert Monroe program that he does at the Institute. And I'm just going through it for the second time, and I'm trying to actually complete the whole thing this time. So I'm doing pretty well. I'm almost through it, and it's a fun ride. So I'm enjoying that right now. And now I'm going to pass it off to Georgina. Georgina? Pronounce that right?
You did. I'm Georgina. I'm from Grantham in England.
Oh, welcome.
My experiences have been, I'm a spiritualist and I get taken by spirit all around the world doing healing. But the nearest thing I've had to the out of bodies, I had a car crash a long time ago and I had an out of body experience then and crawled away from the car. But also I've had, I don't know if you class this as sleep paralysis, but one night I woke up in the middle of the night and wanted to go to the loo and I couldn't move. I got half out of bed and then I realized I looked up and saw myself looking down. And then as fast as that, my body was complete. But that's all I've had. But I enjoy my traveling immensely and want to carry it on.
Great. Thanks for joining us from England. Glenn.
Good evening. This is my second time attending. But
Yeah, Glenn, welcome back.
Yes, sir. I'm from the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, about 60 miles north of Green Bay. I've been interested in out-of-body experiences and ESP and that type of stuff since the 70s. So I'm in my mid 60s now. So it's quite a few years, going on 50 plus years. My ultimate goal is more of a spiritual awakening, and I've had probably less than 7 or 8 OBEs over the years. But what I'm finding is that as I move forward on my spiritual awakening and, getting centered in the one, if you will, the OBEs and everything else are kind of sliding down the priority list, and they're fewer and far between now. I bought the Gateway experience back in the 80s, and my Walkman just died. I was listening to Focus 12, and the cassette players these days are really, really cheap, and so I'm not getting the benefit from it. So now I have the Focus 10, that whole Wave 1 series on my iPad, which I'm using. So I'm focusing in on the Focus 10 on the sleep, which is the 5th tape, as well as the 6th one in terms of the free form or free floating. I forget what it's called. But so I'm using that along with my my meditation. I've been into TM for since the 70s as well. So it's all coming together. And I truly miss the OBEs though, because I can have some fantastic flying experiences, and I just love that. So even though it's it's kind of like a side benefit, it's not part of my spiritual awakening. It should be lower on a priority list. I just miss it because it's fun, so anyway, good evening, everybody.
Cool. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for coming back. Marty? Hi, Marty.
Hey, Juice. I'm from Cocoa Beach, Florida, and I have a handful of experiences and here to learn from you guys who are more seasoned travelers. But my motivation was to try to make a connection with a deceased, which I don't have a lot of hope for, but it's the best hope I've got at the moment without flatlining. So here I am. Thank you for letting me join you.
Thanks, Marty. Yeah, we have a lot of discussions on that too. So I hope you're absorbing some of it. A lot of death discussions and what Robert Monroe did and contacting the different areas. So, all right. Hi, Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan. I'm from Texas. I've been having out-of-body experiences since the 50s, probably about 57, 58. And I've been doing it ever since. I've found a way. I mean, I was fortunate because I have spirit guides that have taught me how to use it to help. I know that Georgina, it may go with some things that you've done. You were saying you've been able to use it for helping.
Yes, I have.
Same.
About fortnight ago, I got taken to Calcutta to do a healing.
Yeah, see, wonderful. It can be used for that. Yeah, that's great.
But my best experience I've ever had was when I first got taken by spiritualists. It was a test, really. They taught me to fly, and flew around in a hang glider, then went back to where we started off from. Then this guide, Jenny, she said, go and take a running jump off the cliff. And I did, and I flew, and it was fabulous, absolutely fantastic.
That's wonderful.
It is, yeah.
Thanks, Susan.
Who's next?
Mark? Mark, would you like to do an introduction?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having this.
My pleasure.
I'm a complete novice. Well, no, I take that back. I'm not a complete novice. I've dabbled in this for many years. I'm familiar with the Gateway experience. I've got some tapes that I listened to. I've kind of had a couple of experiences that make me think that I've done something a little bit unusual, but I can't. Yeah. So I'm just kind of like just picking your guys' brains, I suppose, seeing what's going on, what I can learn from you all.
Cool. You came to a right place. There's lots of good information here.
Okay. I appreciate this.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for joining.
Sure.
Okay, how about Tracy?
Yeah,
Would you
I'm
like-
here.
Hi,
Yes.
Tracy.
Hi, my name is Tracy, and I'm also from where Glenn's from, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but I live in Raleigh, North Carolina now. And I've read Robert Monroe's books last, like, maybe 9 months ago. And I've never had an out of body experience, but I'm trying. And thank you for letting me be here tonight. Thanks.
Thanks for coming. Hope you pick up some good information.
Thank you. I'm sure I will.
All right, well, let's get into the last part of Far Journeys.
May
Questions
I
and
interrupt
answers?
for a second?
Yeah.
Marty, you were talking about the contacting departed loved ones. I've had success with that, but recently I've been having some mental blocks with OBEs, and has anybody here heard of EFT, emotional freedom techniques, which is
Yes.
tapping? All right.
Yeah.
I'm really working on that now to use that to overcome my emotional blocks. I haven't finished on my setup statements and the reminder phrases and all of that, but has anybody else used that to release emotional blocks? And maybe I have a lot of fear and anxiety for achieving the states, because once I reach my vibration levels, it almost immediately shuts down. It's kind of like, ooh, the anxiety is there, and I'm trying to reduce that level to where I'm more comfortable with it, and I just go with the flow when it does occur. Has anybody had any experience with that?
Susan?
I just want to say I have used EFT for, I guess it's EFT. We came to know about it. I have the original manual for the original guy that started it, and there's so many people doing variations of it, but it's wonderful. And I think that it's a good, I think that would be a good way to help release that. You might just have to work with it and change your, if it doesn't work with whatever your command is or what you're saying, change it to something else. But it works. It's a wonderful tool.
Yeah.
Okay, Georgina?
Yeah, I've had EFT and I found it highly amusing because the girl that was doing it with me, every time she cleared a blockage, I broke wind. No, it's not only burping, it's from the other end as well.
A lot of body work, different kinds of body work will do that to people too, is because you just get so relaxed. People get so relaxed that,
Yes.
Glenn, just make sure nobody's around.
Yes.
Would anybody else like to answer Gwen's question?
Hey, Glenn, is this where you tap parts of your body?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, is that with Tom Hartman?
No,
The talk show host?
I'm using Dawson Church. It's the clinical EFT, because I'm really working towards getting my practitioner level so I can work with veterans or spouses of veterans with PTSD. So that's my ultimate goal there, but I want to use this for the OBE as well. So
That's wonderful.
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
because I'm finding a lot of blockages and I'm raising a lot of issues from back in the 70s where I had that fear when it first occurred, because I had no idea what the heck was going on at that time. So before I learned about it, but well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate that input.
Also, too, Glenn, Steph and Jason that come on here a lot, they know a lot about it as well, so you can ask them maybe next time. All right, so what I'd like to do is go through these question and answers and have everybody read it to themselves here. So everybody read the question, and if anybody would like to get into it, we can read the question and then we can read the answer too. And anybody who enjoys reading out loud to other people, you're more than welcome to read it for those people that like to do that. But one of the biggest questions, which we had a few days, 2 days ago, was, or actually yesterday, was how do you know if it's just a type of dreaming when you're out of body, which is the first question here. And I'll read this one. This one is pretty big in the out-of-body lucid dreaming debate. But this is what Robert Monroe says in Far Journeys about it. Most individuals do dismiss the experience when they encounter it as nothing more than a vivid dream. At most, it may be categorized by some as what is identified as a lucid dream. In the latter, the dreamer is apparently aware that he is dreaming and can control the content of his dream, even to the point of changing the event, the participants, and the outcome. Now, in a OOBE, which is out-of-body experience, it's another way that they used to write it too, if you're used to OBE. The individual is near totally conscious, as our civilization defines the state. Most, if not all, of your physical sensory perception is replicated. You can see, hear, and touch. The weakest seems to be smell and taste. Your perspective is from a position outside your physical body, near or distant. In a near state, it is usually from a location impossible for you to be with your physical body, such as floating against the ceiling. In a far location, it could be in Paris, when you know you are in New York physically. You can observe events taking place, but you cannot change or significantly affect them. You can verify the authenticity of such events subsequently if you so desire. You cannot participate to any major degree in the physical activity because you are not physical. It is the extreme reality of the OBE that sets it apart from a dream. It is as real as any physical life experience. And would anybody like to respond to that? Georgina?
From the way he's saying it, could it not be mistaken for remote viewing?
As we move down the questions and answers, he actually defines remote viewing. So you know what we'll do? It's a good question, very good question, which comes up a lot. We'll compare it when we get to his remote viewing definition or answer.
Okay. Also, I'd like to say, one night, I'm sure this wasn't a dream either. I found myself in an old-fashioned wooden hotel in a wood, in an open area. That night, this thing came to my bedroom and tried to rape me, but I managed to push him away. Then I thought, right, I'm going to get the better of you. So I chased it all through the hotel, along five floors, and then right down to the basement. Everywhere was locked up, all the windows, all the doors. I carried on chasing him, thinking, I've got you now in this room. I'll sort you out. He just flew straight through the wall. And
Wow.
that was that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was a dream or whatever, but it was an experience.
Right. That's a good way to put it, Georgina. I like to say that sometimes. It's just an experience, because you can get so caught up in the definition terminology of it.
Yeah. There's a hand gone up.
Oh, that's okay.
Was it yours, Susan?
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
it was just a story I was going to tell. Just
Yeah.
the interactions that we have out of body should tell you whether you're out of body or whether you're remote viewing or you're having a lucid dream. Once you've done them all a bunch of times, you kind of know. You pretty much know. I've done remote viewing. It's not anything like astral projection to me. It has nothing. It's so different. It's night and day to me. Lucid dreams are pretty easy for me to tell. But astral projection is just in a world of its own. It's just, but the interactions that you can have with people and situations out there, like Drew said, you can verify situations. You can verify, people that you may have spoken with and things that they tell you, events that are going on. Like I'm called to accident scenes and natural disasters and things too. So, and you can verify that on television as soon as you're through, you're going to find out where it happened and what happened.
I've had that ability to lucid dream for a long period of time. And I just love to, you get up in the middle of the night and you come back and you start all over and you say, well, I want to go over here. I want to think about this. And it's a lot of fun. I wish there was some technology available to record this because it makes some fantastic movies,
I agree.
Wow.
Have you ever tried to go out from a lucid dream, get out of the body from a lucid dream?
No.
It's a simple way. I suggest you try that sometime when you're lucid dreaming. When you can say, this is a dream,
Yeah.
loud, it will stop the dream. You just say, this is a dream, I'm dreaming. And then you can choose to go anywhere you want to, but you need to have a destination in mind. It's good. But if you're lucid dreaming and you're conscious that you're lucid dreaming, you just tell yourself, okay, this is a lucid dream. I understand that. I want to stop the dream now, and I want to go such and such place, even if it's down to the corner market, whatever. Just have a little place in mind.
Do you feel that a physical location works better than, say, a person or the feeling of the person?
No, I think a person is a good thing also. If it's a person that you care about, if it's a good feeling that you have about them, and not somebody that you're angry at or something like that. But I think a person or place, yeah, or even an event, if that's something that, if that's something that you're interested in, it's happening and you could go to it. Just something that draws your attention and just command that, because once you stop a lucid dream, you're right there. All you have to do is just command where you're going.
Yeah. What in the events, are you talking present, future, or past?
In the beginning, when you're a beginner, I suggest present. Otherwise, you can do past and future. I've done both. I prefer the past for some reason. I don't know why. I prefer the past. But you can do both. But in the beginning, when you're just starting out, I would say someplace close to home, and if it's a person, someone that you know well, and even tell them that you may come and visit them, and so you can verify with them later. You can check in if you pop into their house. You can look and see if something's out of place or something. If they have something odd, you can tell them how their furniture's arranged. Verify, so you can get verification.
Yeah, I enjoy the storytelling in the lucid dreams, and I misspoke before. I have tried that. You're familiar with William, was it Buell as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has that, like, I'm listening to some of his things like high self now, to where you get in touch with different things. So I've tried that technique, but it wasn't really successful for me. But yeah, I want to continue with it.
Everything won't be. Yeah. You just try everything and remember what works for you.
Yeah.
Robert Monroe, I think we're going to get to it tonight. I believe it's one of the questions and answers. I think he mentions that thinking of a person is the strongest thing to draw you to somebody out of body, is the person instead of a place. I think we'll get to that, Glenn, too. So we'll see what he has to say about it. Andrew?
Awesome.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I just want to, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on something that the speaker before, Marty, spoke regarding you have got to have experienced all these different ones to be able to tell what's the difference between what or what's the difference between the other. Like you mentioned remote viewing and as a means of where you can see stuff in the here and now. But remote viewing is not a projection, because you are still going to be aware you're in your physical body It is your vision. There's another word that we that could be used for it. It's kind of like good old fashioned clairvoyance, where you can see from a long distance, but not necessarily project the body there.
Right.
So,
Yep.
That's
so
true.
what Robert Monroe has been explaining here has got nothing to do with astral projection, because in astral projection you go into a different world, a different dimension. But he's talking about a physical projection, which involves another body. What they term as the mental body. Is that so? So what happens that people confuse mental projection with remote viewing. The reason being is that we're using the same vision, which is the mental vision, which sees things in concrete forms. It's not like astral vision. Astral vision doesn't see things, it does not see the physical world, it sees it in a different way. It sees it in astral form, whereas the mental, what they call the mental body, sees it in concrete form. So you'll be able to see things in real life, like it's happening on the here and now. So that's what I believe Robert Monroe is talking about, because I have experienced both remote viewing and actually projecting to the place. And like what was explained before, from lucid dreaming, if you become aware that this is a dream, usually what happens that dream will dissolve, it will disappear. And then from that point on, you can make commands or intent of where you want to go, whether you want to go to the future, or whether you want to go to the past, which other way.
Well, since thanks, Andrew. Since we're talking about the remote viewing, let me pull up what he says about that. I skipped ahead to his remote viewing definition. All right, here we go. How is remote viewing different from OOBE? Remote viewing, or the ability to see events taking place at another physical location, employs a trained state of consciousness that is effective while still very much within the physical body. Usually only one form of perception is utilized, which translates as visual. In the OOB state, there is no awareness of the physical because you are away from it. Also, perceptions other than visual are invariably present. There are other differences, but these are the basics. So that's his answer to the remote viewing.
Yeah, one other thing, from the remote viewing state, it can also be upgraded to a full projection. Yeah, because
Yeah,
I've been doing
Uh,
that. Yeah.
what's the technique for that?
Yeah, since it's based on your energy, and energy follows thought. Wherever your mind is, you can take every part of you and bring it there. So initially, what happens is in remote viewing, first the part of your third eye opens up. You see images. I mean, not I'm not talking about dream images. You've gone past that stage. You're now coming to clear vision, where you're going to see things in concrete forms. So you could see an image of maybe your daughter um, in a house somewhere. That's the first stage. Now you call that remote viewing. But if you continue if you continue focusing on what she's doing, eventually you will end up being there. Do you understand what I'm saying? You would end up actually be in the where she is. Like your body will follow it. The mental body will follow where your attention is fixed on. So the door will open up more to encompass. It's like a TV screen opening up. At first, you're looking through the TV screen, but eventually the TV screen opens up and then you become part of what's in the TV. That's the kind of image only image I can think about, like a VCR opening up. At first, you're viewing it, and then eventually it opens up more, and then you're part of that's how you've entered it, and that's when your body projects. The mental body will follow.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go back to the questions and answers here. Next question is, will deliberately going out of body hurt you? Could you die from it? Does that interest anyone? Susan.
I was asked during a class I was teaching about astral projection years ago. Someone in the class had read that if you practice out astral projection a lot in your life, that it shortens your life. You don't live as long. And they asked me about it, and I said, I've never heard that. No one's ever told me that. I've never read it. And they said, well, you know, you're 50 or you're 50 something now. Aren't you worried about it? And I said, you know, if it did, it wouldn't bother me at all because it was worth it. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't do that.
Thanks, Susan. Since you responded to it, I'm going to read it here. So his response is, after 25 years of investigating, and there's a lot more after this, but this is when the book came out, as well as personal exploration, there is no evidence to support either possibility. There is no doubt as to the emotional impact upon discovery of the reality of the OOB state. The major adjustment of one's belief systems is often traumatic and must be dealt with carefully. Psychologically, there seems to be no effect, including any depletion of energy. Would anybody else like to reply to this or what Susan said?
Yeah, I had
Glenn?
my father recently passed, and when he was in hospice, I tried to share with him my studies and belief in the OBE and trying to prepare him for his passing. And he's a strict Christian. He was a strict Christian, and he really took exception for me even raising that to him, because I thought it would help him make that transition. And he felt that he was in competition with a friend of his that was in hospice as well. I'm going first. I'll meet you here. And it was like, but he did not want to entertain that. It was kind of interesting. Not that necessarily he was afraid he was going to die from it, but I was hoping he would make the transition easier. You know.
Great. Susan?
I did the same with my father, who passed away 10 years ago. He had leukemia, and we had 2 weeks, actually 3 weeks from the time he was diagnosed until he died. He refused treatment. He was ready to go. And so I had a lot of time along with him to talk to him. And we never really discussed all of these things that I've taught, that I've done over the years. And so I just thought, well, this is time for it. So we talked a lot about astral projection, about life after death, about, you know, what you can do once you're out of your body and you're in spirit again, and all of these things. And I told him I was hoping that would make his passage easier. It did. He was open to it. He had an out-of-body experience when he was a child, which I hadn't known about, and he had. So that was very interesting to me. And it did help him. I know that it did help him in his transition. He was more peaceful. So, you know, you can always put it out there for them, but you can tell really quickly if they're not open to it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really good if they are. It gives you, you know, because it helps the family, you know, if you're able to talk about it and try to make things easier for them.
Actually, it was interesting because my father was a mortician. So, and we used to live in the funeral home above it, you know, so our view on death and dying is a little bit different than everybody else's. And the family really, I was celebrating his passing after he died, and we were at the memorial service. And to me, I knew that he had moved on to something better. And it was like, yeah, finally, you know, it's great. But everybody else was just appalled at the way I was responding to that, because they were so tied up in their sorrow and everything else. And it was like, oh my goodness, you know, you ought to be celebrating his life, not but everybody has to go through their stages of grief. But
Yeah.
yeah, the whole church was kind of taken aback at me, but hey, what the heck?
Earlier in the book, Robert Monroe talks about how he sent his mother tapes and stuff on what he was doing when she was on her deathbed, and got into that too and how it helped her.
Yeah.
Tracy?
Oh, I was just going to comment that I work as a hospice nurse part-time and for the last 10 years. And I really wish I could share this with some of my patients that I see. So I just wanted to comment on that. I really wish, I'm so eager to mention it, to bring them some extra peace. But anyway, just wanted to comment.
Tracy, Robert Monroe made a lot of tapes for people like hospice and stuff like that on their deathbeds. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yeah,
No.
I think, Glenn, you talked about one, right? I think on a previous meeting.
Yeah, actually, the one I think I was mentioning was the surgery series of 5 tapes.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, and that was very successful. I know that William Buell has a DVD or CD out that I'm listening to now, and it doesn't close. It's open-ended, and it's trying to help them to transition to a higher self, because he believes in the different frequency levels, if you will, or the different planes. And you can go, if that's my father, I think, was set on achieving that level where he was comfortable based on his Christian beliefs, but I think that's kind of restrictive. And to me, it's more of a, you can go even to a higher level, if you will, and get back to being one. It's fascinating now. And I have to make sure that when I listen to that, though, that I ground myself afterwards, because otherwise it's kind of like I'm out floating around for a day or two, because I haven't taken the time to ground myself.
Right. Tracy, you could actually probably do a search on the internet for it. Just type in Monroe Institute hospice meditation tapes, or there's some information
Okay.
out there on it. I've never looked into it, but I heard about it.
Okay, thank you. I'll definitely do that. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Tracy, I'll go ahead. This is the Buell one. It's Destination Higher Self, and that's what I'm listening to. So I'll make sure
Thank
you
you.
get that information as well.
Thank you so much.
Are you restricted from offering suggestions in your hospice environment?
It seems like the community that I'm in, it wouldn't be very open about it. I'm in like a smaller Southern Baptist community. Most of my families are.
Okay.
So the team I'm working with, a little more conservative that way, but
Yeah.
and there's other teams like in Raleigh, in the city of Raleigh, I know it's much more progressive, so they might be different. So
yeah, and just so you know, William worked with the Monroe Institute, and Hemisync is part of this as well.
okay.
So,
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And Glenn, if you could just, maybe you can type in the chat area, you can maybe type something down or a link. You can always put it there.
okay.
And then Tracy, you can always look on your chat area to pick that information up.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
There's always people, there's stuff going on in there on the side. I miss it sometimes. All right, so let's see here. Let me share a screen again. Do drugs or alcohol help or bring on an OOBE? Would anybody like to get into that one? Susan?
Don't help me. Alcohol, no. I'm not going out of body. I don't drink, but if I've had a glass of wine with friends or anything like that, no, it doesn't help me at all. Now, that being said, there are some drugs, some recreational drugs that I've had people tell me that they've taken that have just blown them out of body and then brought them back in, ketamine being one of them. I wouldn't recommend it. That's an illegal drug. It's also, I think that is a veterinary drug. I'm not sure, but
It is. They use it with cats with I used to be a veterinary technician. We'd use it all the time. It caused some weird effects, though. Yeah,
well,
side
a
effects.
friend of mine told me about it. Yeah, said that he had taken it. Well, he'd taken just about everything just back in the day. And he said that ketamine just blasted him right out of his body. But he had already had out of body experiences, so this wasn't any big deal for him. He said it blasted him out of his body. And then he said, you're out for less than a minute and then you're back in. But he said, if you've never had
Oh,
that
wow.
body experience before, you can see what it feels like for a second and then you're right back in. But it's an illegal drug, you know.
Huh.
I've had other people- yeah, I've
I want
had other
to
people tell me
pop
that
in
before.
on that note real quick. I just heard that that's changing. As of a year or maybe 2 years ago, there's actually clinics that will administer that under heavy supervision,
Really?
under the premise of therapy, and
Yeah.
give you ketamine.
Wow.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
would think if
So
you,
th-
Well,
I
that's
would think
legal.
if you took drugs to induce something like that, you'd get reliant on them, wouldn't you?
Well, if you're stuck in a lab, it's expensive.
Well, I mean, you can get those things off the street. So, I mean, like DMT and stuff like that, if you were to take things like that to induce out of body experiences, I would think that it would be hard to do it by yourself, like be reliant on it. You know what I mean?
I couldn't find that to be addictive because what I've heard is that they're very uncontrolled. It's very wild. It's nothing like where you're normal, except you're out of body. No,
Right.
you're like, there's a lot of other stuff going on. So I wouldn't find that to be something you do all the time.
Andrew?
Yes, the part about drugs. I mean, I've been projecting now for quite a while, but there was a period in my life when I dabbled with drugs, and what I found was yeah, there are certain drugs which could allow you to have astral projection, and heroin is one of them. However, I was only able to gain access to lower planes. I couldn't seem to go any higher, and it never brought me any joy or happiness that I was able to leave my body during that period. Because I was spiritually bankrupt. So I don't understand. I mean, surely my chakras couldn't have been firing properly, but yet I was still able to project. You know, that actually brought up a lot of questions about, what do you have to do to be able to project? Your chakras have to be all lined up and all that kind of stuff. But in the state that I was in, but I was still able to project.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew. Brett?
Hey, so I've had an experience. Well, when we were talking about alcohol, one of my best experiences, I was buzzed and I went to bed and I didn't even try to do my affirmations and stuff. And I just so happened to roll right out. I think that was more along the lines of me not trying so hard that night actually helped induce projection. Maybe just it helped my body fall asleep quicker. But I wouldn't rely on things like that. And when it comes to the topic of DMT, which is huge online when it comes to astral projection, I've tried it once. I didn't go out with it, but I was in the presence of my friend who did. And it's not that pretty to watch. It was the smoked version, and he was gone within like 10 seconds. And you do not have the level of control that you do when you purposefully initiate one yourself. He was like, I think with hallucinogens, you're generally shown something. You're taken somewhere and shown something, and you're bombarded with so much information that it's hard to process, and it's just very disorienting. He was having an argument with a being that told him that his whole existence wasn't real, and he was fighting it hard. And I'm seeing him squirm around on the floor and everything, and he thought he died in my bathroom naked. Took all his clothes off in my bathroom, and he kept apologizing for I've died in it. So I'm like, okay, he's probably going through some ego death or something. So it's not as nice and calm as laying in your bed and going out of your body. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents about it.
Yeah, I agree. Monroe puts it like that too, exactly how you were saying it, Brett. Susan?
In astral projection, you want to be as fully there as you can be. Alcohol lowers your vibration so that if you get out of body and you've been drinking, your vibration is lowered. So what you attract astrally is going to be of a lower vibration also. So it's, you know, it's better if you can get out without any of that stuff. It's just better. But that being said, I have a friend who has been having out of body experiences like me. I went to school with him, went to high school with him, but we didn't know anything about what each other did in high school. We found out years later. But he had spoken to his uncle about it, who was a minister. I think a Baptist minister, Methodist minister, I'm not sure. And he told them that he was having out of body experiences, and they told him to do everything he could not to have them because the church says no, no, no. And it was just so sad to me because he was proficient, you know, he was so good at it. And we would see each other out of body sometimes at events and things and just wave, you know, across the distance, and we could talk to each other later and confirm, you know, yeah, I was there, I saw you, you know, you were with so-and-so, I saw you. And, but he did take that to heart, and he started drinking. And because that kept him from going out of body. If he just got really snockered, man, really drunk, and he became an alcoholic. Years later, he had to have a liver transplant. He almost died. And we talked about it after his transplant. He asked me, he said, "You still doing it? You still going out?" And I said, "Oh yeah, yeah." And I told him, I said, "You know, you should forget about what you were told and get back out there. Now that you've got a new liver, you're off alcohol, get back out there." And but it, you know, things like that can mess people up too.
Thanks, Susan. Glenn?
Yeah, there's one of the things you mentioned, DMT. One of the things I'm doing as part of my meditation, I normally wake up at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I start this out with a Wim Hof breathing technique, which can produce DMT levels in the brain as well. And I'm finding that definitely sets me up for a deeper meditation experience after that. So I'll put that in the chat as well, but just thought I would mention that.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. We were talking about that yesterday. Oh, it was today? Sunday?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday. Gosh, I'm doing so many meetings. I don't remember which one. But yeah, Susan, you're talking about how DMT with the pineal gland and also in the lungs,
The
which
lungs,
was,
yeah.
yeah,
That's
what
why
you were
breathing
talking about.
exercises are so transformative. Yeah.
And as I read here for what Monroe says about it, there is some data to indicate that all hallucinogens may be producing an uncontrolled OOBE, which we kind of just were talking about with Brett stuff. The drug experience in itself has not been studied in depth as to this possibility. So they haven't done too much. And Monroe always talks about it, how he doesn't use any external drugs or anything like that. He did mess around a little bit in his book. He did mess around when certain things were kind of legal back then, back in the 60s and 70s, but he didn't stay with it that long. But he does mention a little experimentation. All right, the next question. Is the OOBE similar to the near-death experience that has been written about in several recent books? Is anybody interested in that? The difference between near death and out of body. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Are there such things as weather conditions, moon phase, line, north-south important in achieving the out of body state? Susan?
I just will go with what I've been told. I actually, has anybody read any of the Llewellyn material regarding astral projection? This is old stuff. It's been around for a long time. There was a book, and I don't remember the name of the book, but it was a Llewellyn book, and it had some really good things. I read it in my 30s, I think, and it had been out for a while then, but they talked about all of that, and it just oh, I can't remember what I was going to say now. What were we just asking? I had something I was going to say.
Maybe the position that you lay in to help induce.
Yeah, because they talked about position that sometimes north south, you know, with your head north, feet south. I've tried it in all different, you know, north south, east west, everything. Um, None seem to be particularly better than the other for me. One thing that was real conducive to the experience was long ago I had a water bed, and that nice
Yeah.
warm water bed was just like a womb. I mean, I loved it. It was that I lie down that in the daytime and I'd be out of body in no time. It was wonderful. I don't want a water bed anymore, but it was helpful. It was conducive to the experience for some reason. But Llewellyn also they mentioned in their book that there was a dead time of year. Has any of y'all heard that? It's called the dead time of year, and they recommended no psychic activity or astral projection or anything. And it was from, I'm trying to remember the exact date. It seems like it was from December 21st through March 22nd, I want to say. And that used to bum me out when I read about it, because I thought, you know, I don't want to go for a couple of months without doing this. But when I first read about it, I was planning to try my first into the distant past astral projection, and I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and go with what they say right now, and I'm just going to research. And when March 22nd comes around, I'll be ready for this. You know, I'm going to build myself up to the experience, and I'll do dry runs and all of this to see if I can be successful. So I waited. I worked myself up for 2 months to this experience, and I think it was on March 22nd or March 23rd. I went through with it, and it was successful. But you know, I went for 2 months there, over 2 months without doing anything, and it was unpleasant. I didn't like it. And I've had lots of experiences out of body during those times of the year, and they were fine. I don't know where that came from. I'm not sure. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt, I guess.
Thanks, Susan. Brett?
Yeah, I was basically going to say something along the same lines. Like when it comes to moon phases and sleeping in certain positions, I kind of lump like crystals in there as well, in terms of having a belief will affect your experience. So if you think that those things, you need to do those or lie in a certain way, or the moon has to be a certain phase, then that will be so in order for you to get out. Just because of your intention and belief are that strong. So that's my personal belief when it comes to that.
Thanks, Brett. Monroe gets into basically saying that try if you can to keep your head facing north. He's real big on that. If you read a lot of his books, keeping your head facing north, because a magnetic pull somehow is easier to get out of your body. All right. To the next question. If I leave my body temporarily, can someone else get into it while I'm gone? Does that interest anyone? Susan?
I've had people come up to me out of body guides and people that were trying to, you know, monitoring me in the beginning, and they would tell me on a couple of occasions that, you know, they would tell me it's time to go back to your body now. And no, I was having a good time. I didn't want to go, you know. It's like, no, I'm talking to these people. I want to, you know, I'll go later. I'll go. And they've actually come up and said to me on 2 occasions, well, if you're not going back to your body right now, do you mind if I go into your body? And I use your body while you're out of it, and which panicked me, and I would just go flying back and get in my body. It was a way to get me back in my body. But that being said, during rescue situations where people are in critical condition, I have and I was instructed to do this. Because I don't know that I would ever have thought of it myself, but if someone is in shock and they're in danger, if they're supposed to live, like when I've been taken to these places, I know if they're supposed to live or die. You know that when you get there. But if they're in extremely critical condition, lost a lot of blood, a lot of trauma or whatever, they go into shock, and there's a risk of them dying just from the shock. And there's been multiple occasions where I just dived into them. They swing out of their body, they're attached by their cord, and I will dive in and put that energy into them. I'm not attached to their body in any way, but I'm just there giving it enough energy to get them to the hospital and get them into treatment. And then as soon as their body stabilizes, I swing out and they swing back in. So I know that it's possible. But
Thanks
as
to-
possession wise, like that, I've never experienced that myself.
Well, Monroe says we all leave our bodies at night.
Yeah.
So that means there'd be a lot of people on this planet getting their bodies taken over if that was the premise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but now here's one thing: Robert Monroe with his Explorer series, the Explorers, the bodies get taken over sometimes, or they get channeled. So it comes to a fine line when these spirits get into these bodies during the Explorer series. Is that how much control do they have? So that's a whole nother area, but I don't know if anybody would like to respond on any of that. If you followed the Explorer series, Susan.
I've stayed in one woman's body for 2 weeks, her time. It wasn't my time. It was like 2.5 hours my time. Her time, it was 2 hours. And she was suicidal because of her life situation. And my assessment at the time was she needs a break from this. I swore at the time I would never do it again because it was the most dreary, awful life experience that she was having. I would have hated it for it to be my life experience, but it was just dreary and drab and plain. And there was nothing in her life. She was a housewife, raising children with an abusive husband and a mother-in-law that lived with. It was a terrible situation. And it was basically, I was taken there and kind of instructed, this is what is going to have to happen here. And it was just an agreement. She goes out, I go in for 2 weeks. And after that, I didn't do it for a long time. I didn't want to do it because it was, I wasn't trapped there. I could have left at any time, but I made an agreement, for her to rest up, to have this time out of her body. And I never checked on her after I got back. I never went back there, ever.
So Susan, would the question be better if it said that somebody can get their body taken over temporarily, but not permanently?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not really taken over. I don't know that it's really, because in her case, I'm trying to remember, I lived her life for 2 weeks, but there was not a lot of interaction around the family. It was just a very drab, sad existence. And I'm not sure that it was real helpful to her. Maybe she was able to, while she was in this state and out of body, maybe she was able to come to some kind of decision about what she would do about her life. But it was not that one was not pleasant. That was not pleasant at all. And I don't ever feel like I made any decisions while I was in her body, nothing like that. I was just an occupying energy that was there while she was out so that she could function and still be out of her body. So, it was, that was just that experience. I've had others, I've had many others. One of the things that I thought of years ago that you could do with this, but there again, it's an ethics question, because there's a morality and an ethics out of body that you need to follow, but I was very curious at one time about people in the political arena. And, I felt like, well, I need to assess this situation for myself. So I decided I would go out of body and I would pop into the body of this person just momentarily into their mind, into their thoughts, just to see what they really were about. And that was just a few seconds and I couldn't take it. I just forced myself out and back. And I've told everybody that knows about this, I'll never do it again. I'll never, never, never do that again. I found out what I needed to know. I will say that. I did find out what I needed to know, but I will never do it again.
You remember Monroe says he traveled to the year 3000, and during the year 3000, anybody could take over anybody's body.
Yeah.
So you just leave your body, your physical body, under a tree, and somebody else can just come and just take it over, and that means you got to go in somebody else's body. So
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't mention a little bit about that in that question, but yeah, interesting stuff here.
I think the key point is consent. Like with all of Susan's cases, they're either their subconscious or their higher self was allowing it to happen.
Yeah, it's always
And
Yeah.
right. So the ones you hear, the ones you read about in fiction, it's not consensual at all, and it's total possession. But I think my gut says that any case of true 100% possession is one of those psychological cases of multiple personality, where there's actually two permission sets going on, and it's complicated, but it's not just something whimsical from the outside entering in. They have to worry about.
Steph, I was just watching the Ted Bundy tapes. He was just talking about that on there, why he had split more personalities like that.
Oh, that's
Of
intriguing.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. I didn't get totally into it, but I was watching a preview on it. He was talking about that.
Wow.
Glenn?
Yeah, Susan, did you say you approached and entered a politician?
I did.
Okay, I was just wondering, I forget where I heard this, but this was back in the 70s and 80s, where I had heard that there's protection, psychic protection around a lot of the politicians. Have you ever come across anything like that?
No, because
Kind
I
of like
haven't done that.
bodyguards?
I haven't done that. That's the only time I've ever done that to a person in power or in a position like that. And this person had not yet taken power. They were just running for office, and I was concerned. I was very concerned. So I wanted to know. I wanted to know more. Now I've been to government facilities before when covert things were going on, and there were bodyguards there. There were astral. What I think they were astral. They had astral guards there, people
Right.
that, and they could see me. They knew, and told me I did not belong there. I needed to leave and not come back, and I did.
I'd heard that as well.
Yeah.
Never experienced it, but I heard that from others.
Yeah, they did have guards there. They did, and that really startled me because I wasn't expecting it. But the politician, no, they had nothing. They have no. I don't think they have much protection to this day. But it was just an experiment, It was just can I know? Can I get a better idea of what if this person is on the up and up, which I knew they weren't. They weren't, but I had to try, and I did, and I won't do it again. It was an awful experience. It was a terrible experience. I wouldn't do it again.
Glenn, it's like the movie Inception when they had their protection there.
Yeah.
His mind, his subconscious was actually trained to protect his mind from being stuff stolen from it.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah, it was during the 9/11
There you go.
period. Can you hear me? It was during the 9/11 period. I got so very, very emotionally charged about it, to the point where I projected, and I found myself with the American President George Bush. And now the funny thing was that he had two bodyguards, but for some reason they did not see me, but he saw me. And I found that strange. He saw me and pointed out to his security that, look, he's got through. Didn't you see him come through? And then I left after that. I just found it strange that his bodyguards, the psychic bodyguards, did not see me, but he saw me. And he panicked because I had got very close.
Yeah.
That's how powerful those things can be, If people know what you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, Robert Monroe said you can't do anything, but you can see things, but you can't have an effect. I'm telling you now, you can have an effect.
You can.
You can have an effect.
Yep. I think the next book we read here, Ultimate Journey, he talks about a situation where the government came out to his house because he saw inside a government vehicle. So that's going to be the next conversations coming up when we get into that book. All right, guys, I'm going to pull up screen here. Next question. In your previous book, you gave an angle method for getting out of your body, but I can't make it work for me. Is there something I am not doing right? I remember we talked about this. This angle method was really hard. It was like 90 degrees to a 30-degree movement with a triangle vision. If you guys remember that. Was this interest anybody? You want to talk about this?
I want to ask you, Juice, having run the group so long, do you remember anyone ever having success with that method in particular? Because I don't remember anyone.
I don't, and I don't even remember trying it. I just remember hearing about it.
I tried it. It never worked for me.
Well, as Monroe talks about on here, he says he that's an old way of doing it. And it was complicated for other people too. And he has a better version of it now today. I'm not sure what version that is, but so I guess that's kind of a little bit outdated, that version, but I guess a lot of people have trouble with it.
Juice, I think Bob Peterson got out that way in his early days. Do you remember reading any of his stuff?
Oh, yeah, I have, but I don't remember. But yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to ask him now, Julie.
Yeah, I'm curious. I think I read that in his hacking
out of
body.
I know Peterson has a visual with like a cube that moves forward and backwards. That's one he's really big on. Yeah.
I could have sworn I read that like that was one of his first, like maybe his first time he did the Bob Monroe thing, and it worked for him. I've tried it several times, and I do get that when I was first starting that practicing, and I did get definitely like an increase in. Like the buzzing. It seemed to like increase when I would do it, but it never really worked for me.
It didn't. Yeah.
Ultimately, yeah.
Yeah, like Steph said, I don't know anybody that it worked for, but that's interesting. I'm going to ask Bob Peterson about it, see what he says. What does it mean when you get when you get strange aches and pains in your head and various parts of your body when you try to go out of body? Interest anyone? Susan?
I don't want to take up a lot of time on it, but I know when you're coming back into your body, and I've had it happen going out of body too, that you get this like a headache. To me, it feels like my brain, if I move my head quickly, my brain's bouncing off the side of my skull inside. It hurts. But coming back in, if you come in quickly and you're not reseated properly in your physical body, it can result in a headache. That's what most people experience. It's kind of a headache, and the solution for it is just to sink back into your body, like mentally, and try to get back out, or fall asleep. If you just fall asleep for a few minutes, you'll wake up without the headache, because while you're sleeping, your body reseats itself. So I think it's having to do with the body's becoming something coming loose. You're not quite seated properly. If you're trying, you're already moving a little bit of your energy, and they're not in alignment, and it can create a headache, can create some different kind of things.
Right. Good point. Andrew?
Yes, I agree with what Susan said. That's one of the reasons why you can have that. That's happened to me, and like she correctly said, one of the best ways to sort it out is to go back to sleep. Yeah, and correct yourself from coming back in. It means either you've come back too quickly. But some people snap where they become afraid, and they want to stop the experience very quickly. And when they come back quickly, they've not shut certain doors. They've not shut certain doors before they've come out. And sometimes even in those experiences, for a brief moment, when your eyes open, you can actually see non-physical. You can actually see non-physical things, just for a brief second.
Right. Exactly.
Another reason why you could have a headache is you also have to check to see how you lay on your pillow. Did you lay on your pillow correctly? You understand? Because sometimes when you fall asleep, your neck might be in the wrong position, and when you wake up, you're going to wake up with a headache. That's one other reason I found.
Yep, definitely. Georgina?
Would that be something similar to when you've been using your third eye? I get pains right round the top of my head, and I get the feeling going up from the bottom of the neck all the way up my head.
I
Would
think
Would
that
that be
be-
something similar?
yeah.
Well, that
I-
usually means you've been overworking that psychic parts. It means you've been doing too much concentration, because it's not good to have aches and pain, because these things are supposed to be blissful experiences, not things where you're getting headaches and stuff like that. So you have to be careful with that.
I just get really, it's just a band round the top of my head.
Okay, okay. That could just be some blockage. I get that one too. Eventually, it leaks out, whatever it is. It could be pressure. It could be anything, so stuff like that. I've had something similar to what you're talking about, like a ring on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Susan?
Third eye work can cause you to have a headache when you first, especially when you first start doing it, because your muscles aren't used to because there are muscles that actually attach to all this stuff in your head. And especially when I first started doing the rolling my eyes up to look, on this area right here, your muscles hurt all around your eyes. Now they get used to it after a while and it becomes comfortable. But when you first start doing it, I would just have these tension headaches, just like you were talking about. That's what did it for me too. Yeah. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And then after a while, I don't think that you really have the problem anymore from the third eye stuff anyway.
Can I ask one question? I've had taken by spirit. I've been to 2 different planets. Would that have been classed as an out-of-body experience, or would that be just remote viewing?
If you were taken by somebody, I would say they took you out of body. Because anytime I've been taken anywhere, I'm aware that I'm out of body.
Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, I agree with Susan. Out of body. And Robert Monroe has been taken many places by other beings, other planets.
Yeah.
I would think, they pulled you out of body, took you. Yeah.
I ended up by going around these planets in a mini spaceship. Got taken around. Also, first time I went, planet was in darkness, and you know how we have solar panels to turn electricity. They have solar panels inside to project the sunlight that they've caught, which I thought was a fantastic idea. But I'd like to go back, but I couldn't speak their language at the time. I still can't now, because it's soul language. I know people who can and don't understand a word of it.
Yeah, Monroe gets into that, how he has to learn, especially the non-verbal language, telepathy type language. Yeah. And he had to get used to it too. So sometimes somebody would be talking to him, he couldn't understand it. And then he has his whole system of phrases that he uses to actually start communicating with these beings.
So were you able to communicate with them? Did they see you?
Only on a mental level.
Did they see you?
Yeah, I was with one lady doing what mundane thing like going shopping, and we in this vehicle we have problems parking here with cars. They have problems parking with spaceships. And it's amusing. I got shown their spaceports, saw all sorts of spacecraft, large and small, and different colours. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to go back, but I haven't had the opportunity. Do I try and do it myself, or do I wait until I get taken?
You can do both.
Yeah. Should you be with somebody when you first attempt OAB? Or can I do it on my own safely?
You mean in person?
Yeah.
I would say no. That's usually it's very distracting.
Oh, okay. But when I've done regression, it's that must be something similar. I've been taken back to the 1900s, the 1800s and 1700s. It so works out, and that seemed strange.
Right.
But
Hypnosis is basically shamanic journeying. The same thing. And you can do that while in your body, next to people, in a group, sitting in chairs in a large group. But when you're trying to leave your body completely, you want to be as detached as possible, as free from distraction as possible.
oh, as you're a totally different group, I'd like to ask one question that has baffled me and baffled everybody else, and that is, one of my regressions, I was a Jewish lady. Anyway, to cut that story short, she died, and she was buried, put in a grave, and the coffin was lowered, and I heard, I could feel the stone and dirt being shoveled on top of me. That can't be God knows what that was. I don't know.
That actually sounds like a past life memory.
It does.
Yeah, because that's actually quite significant, because in all the past life memories I've had, it has always been at a significant point in my life, which meant maybe I was going to get killed or something was going to happen. It's always the same theme. It shows how I died. And I see everything, I get to, I experience it. So it's always something to do with either you're dying. So it doesn't have you were born and then you became a doctor or something like this happened. It doesn't. I've not received that, but you can actually access all that information. But it only seems to save significant stuff about you.
Okay, thanks for your bit of help. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Georgina. All right, we're gonna move on to the next question here. Can you get back into the wrong physical body by mistake? Does anybody want to talk about that one? Susan?
Never have. I never have. I don't think so.
Think so.
The body, when we leave our body, the body is not vacant.
So it looks like, yeah, we're anybody for a yes on that? What about animals in the out-of-body state? Have you met any? Could you communicate with them? Susan?
Yes. And I'm sure other people have stories about this too. This is really common. Yes, you can. And animals can see you.
Monroe gets in, he talks about that. He had a couple cats, and the cats definitely have a second state body. He talks about that. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yes, I've got cats, and I often see my cats. There was one time when I had a projection, and I saw my cat by the door screaming to be let in. And I remembered I'd not left the little thing open, so she'd been out. So I had to wake up and went straight to the door because I knew she would be there. And there she was right by the door, and I let her in. So I know, I'm not sure whether the cats are conscious that they project, but they do, because obviously they have, because they're life forms, they will also have astral form. The same as human beings, we have astral forms, so they too will have forms.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise. I've even seen insects. I've seen insects.
Yeah. Mosquito bites?
No, this was a funny one. What happened was, I hate things like flies and stuff. I mean, I had a projection in my room, and all I could hear was flies buzzing all over it. So when I woke up, I realized what had happened. I had this little, you know, those sticky sellotapes that you stick on the wall to catch flies. So I caught loads of them. So even though they were dead on the physical fooling, on the psychic plane, they were alive. So I removed it and threw it away, and I never had anything after that.
Yeah, Andrew, while you're out of body, you're probably in this out of body state. You were stuck on one of those, and the flies were free.
They were alive and kicking on the other side.
All right, guys. Next question is: were your sounds on your audio cassettes or those on any other sound cassettes induce the out of body state? And he's pretty big on this. And as you can see here, it would be very rare, if at all. So it's tough to have an out-of-body experience for most people. And I know people will say sometimes, well, if you say that, then it's going to be tough. But, you know, in my world, it's tough that I say it. Certain other factors must be approached first, such as the fear barrier. He talks about the fear barrier is the number one thing all the time. Reappraisal of your belief systems, among others. It is an extreme exception that balance has been reached significantly to move that easily into the out-of-body state. So, from what I read, Monroe, it's a tough thing to do, to have an out-of-body experience. Would anybody else like to talk about that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, Andrew.
I mean, I've seen a lot of projectors saying, "Oh yeah, everybody, anyone can project, and it's gonna, you know, and rah rah rah," and doing all these lectures and trainings. But at the end of the day, it's not everybody that's going to project. Some people have tried for years, and some people would only have one moment of when they projected, and that will be it.
Right.
So it suggests to me it's a bit more. It takes a bit more than just using techniques or getting the right techniques, or there has to be more to it than just that.
Yeah, Monroe will talk about that. Just about, I forget the percentage, but we'll have one in their whole entire life, just one, and that was just whatever, a medium percentage. There is a number somewhere in this book on that, but
And
it
they would
wasn't.
be happy with that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And now we get into remote viewing again, which we already went over earlier tonight. Oh, wait, hold on. What about flying dreams? Is flying dreams an OOB? Would anybody like to talk about that?
Let me come in there. For me, flying dreams is a prelude. It's a prelude to OBE for me, because once I have flying dreams, that's a trigger for that. That's a huge trigger for me to know that okay, I'm dreaming now. I'm lucid, and then from then on, I can move on to a real astral projection, or if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Can an OOBE be induced by hypnosis? Would anybody like to talk about that?
Never happened to me, but I'm sure maybe it could. But I've tried before. It's never worked for me.
Never worked. The next question is, when you find yourself out of body while still performing a physical act, such as driving a car, what should you do? How do you control it? Susan?
Well, when I was about 17 years old, I used to have to drive to another town to go to work, and I started having this because I was having out-of-body experiences, but I'd never experienced anything like this while I was doing something. But I would be driving my car, and I would be aware. I don't really know how to explain the feeling that came over me, but just knowing that there's a separation going on. So I would actually be looking at myself from behind my head in floating behind the seat, looking at myself, and it would startle me so bad. I was still driving. I was able to drive, but I was looking at myself from the back seat, looking at myself. So I knew I had, I was separating, and I would pull the car over and I would stop, and I would just, it's like, oh my God, I can't let that happen again. But it happened over and over again. And I realized that I came up with a technique that helped me to stop that when I was driving, because I had to stop it. And the first thing I said to myself was, I am not two, I am one, or I'm not separate, I am one, I'm all together. And it would bring me back, but that seemed long. So after that, I would just say, I am one when it started happening, and it would pull me, it would bring me back together, back to where I was supposed to be. And after that, if it happened, I just shortened it to one. I could just say one, and it would make me know, no, you have to be right here, right now. This is not a time for this.
Right. Yeah, Susan, that kind of, this is what Monroe says about, kind of reminds me of what you're saying here. He's like, get back as fast as you can. Get back to your body as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Use the quick return method described earlier. This has not happened to me personally, but I understand it does occur infrequently.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I had a friend who had that same problem. What had happened was he had been working solely on his crown chakras. That's all he worked. That's the only work he did. He worked on his crown chakras. And one day on the way to the market, whilst he was working to go and get some provisions, he came out of his body. He came out of his body, and he was able to see the top of his head walking, and he was able to control it like a puppet. He was able to control his physical body like the way you control a puppet. Now, to me, that was like, wow, that's like a wow, that's cool. But to him, it was very serious. It really distressed him to the point that he ceased all his kundalini work and just stopped everything. And it took him about 5 years to get it back to normal. But during that period, he was highly psychic. Highly had all the those powers, but he wasn't balanced. If you understand, it was not there was something about him that he wasn't balanced. It took him about 5 years to correct it, because coming out of your body like that is, I mean, it's not, it sounds it's a very scary thing. I mean, I really would not want that to happen while I'm driving a car. It's a scary thing. But one thing I would say is that you're okay. That thing that's come out is the spirit. It's called the immortal spirit. It can take charge of everything. It can take full control of driving the car. You're not in any danger whatsoever. It's just a freaky experience. That's all.
Right. Yeah, it is scary. Everybody, it is 8:30, so we have a few more questions left. Feel free to drop out if you need to go. Thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to continue here with the questions. Yeah, time's flying quick here. So
it's 1:30 here.
Yeah, it's 1:30 here, yeah. In the UK.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I'm from, to UK.
All right, next question. Is it easier to go to a place, we were talking about this earlier, is it easier to go to a place or a person while in the out-of-body state? I think, Glenn, I think you asked that earlier.
Yes.
Usually to a person, he says here. Easiest to someone who is close to you emotionally. There are some who can go to places, but it requires a specific address or ident, which he uses a lot in the book to get to everything. Would anybody like to talk about this?
Yes. I once had a friend of mine. I just moved to a new flat, so he wanted me to find out, to come to, to project and describe what his house looked like. So I projected, and I found myself in some block of flats, and I was directed to the first floor. So I went into the it's one of those ones had a balcony. I went to the balcony and right into his room. But when I got to his room, he wasn't in his room. His bed was empty. You understand? So I now A few hours, I now called him back and I described what his room looked like. He asked me all the questions because he's very scientifically minded. He asked me all, the questions, and I explained to him that yes, you have a balcony, and I came through it, and when I came to your room, there was nothing there. Yeah, and he said yes, it gone out, and he actually said that yes, I had got his room, you know. So when you want to project to someone, I believe you have to have their name, or you have to say, I want to go to such person.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you say you want to go to their house, they might not be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I learned from that one. Because I've made a lot of mistakes on trying to find someone's house instead of trying to find the person.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, back to questions here. If you meet a being while out of body, how can you tell if it is malevolent or benevolent? Would anybody like to talk about Steph or Susan?
That was actually something that's come up for me a bunch of times. I had shamanic training for about 10 years, a few decades ago, and that was really helpful to me. But I learned something from them, from the shamanic training, and it was to ask anything, if you're shamanic journeying, if you're out of body, anything. It worked out. To anyone that you encounter, anything you encounter, if you have a question about them, you ask them, are you of the light? And they do have to answer you honestly. They have to answer honestly. If they beat around the bush, then you just leave, you just go, because if they'll answer you forthright, just they'll come out. But another thing that I was told, then when I in the early writings and things that I was doing in my meditations, and my son and I were both told to also ask, do you serve the universal Christ consciousness? And they also have to answer honestly. And if they don't answer either of those questions to your satisfaction, you just leave. You just leave them. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to argue with them. You don't have to do anything. You just leave. It just means that it's not someone that you should be hanging around with right then.
Thanks, Susan. Great advice. Here we are. Next question. Can one go forward and backward in time while out of body? Would anyone like to talk about that?
Yes.
Susan?
I just want to say yes.
That's okay. Nobody else has their hand up, so.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, because I follow a guy on YouTube, the Astral Club. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but he was saying that when you do these projections, I've never projected. I'm trying to work on it, but he was saying that when you do projections to the future, that you can like see alternative futures, but when and spend more time there. But when you go towards the past to try to project towards the past, that it's like cut short. So I mean, I don't know how much because I don't have an experience doing it, but I'm just wondering if anybody's had any kind of like experiences like that, like where if you do go to the future, if you can like I'm not gonna say manifest what you want to happen, but like have some sort of insight as far as where your life is going.
Definitely. So that's more of a shamanic journey. I wouldn't spend an OBE on that because you get too involved and there's so many more fun things to do. Like you could optimize your time, right? But so a shamanic journey, a common one is, you picture going downstairs, usual induction to get into the trance state. And then you imagine you're entering a hallway with many doors on both sides. And each door represents a possibility for whatever timeline you pick, next week, a certain person, encounter, whatever you want, whatever context. And then just pop in each door and see what's in there and feel it out. One time I did that on a flight I was going to take, and all of the doors had something not so great in them. And that really pissed me off. I'm like, no, this sucks. This can't be true. And sure enough, yeah, they were accurate. So yeah, give that a try.
Thanks, Steph. Andrew.
Yeah, yes, I've had experience in several experience actually in going past into the past and the future. But what I found is the past never changes. It's the same.
Fixed.
Every time you visit it, it's the same thing. Okay. The future, however, the future, however, I found was a probability. Because what I did was in the area that I lived, I did a projection of how is this area going to look like in 10 years' time. And it showed the petrol station won't be there. There was a petrol station that was there. So that petrol station won't be there. And there was going to be a big bank that's built up, and the whole estate was going to be transformed and changed. Okay. So what I found out was that after so many years, after 15 years afterwards, I now went to check. Yes, the estate had changed, it transformed exactly the way I saw it. But the petrol station had now built another extra building up, so they'd not disappeared. And that part, I was surprised about that one because I thought, why has he put up why has he built up another floor here? This is not even supposed to be here. So I didn't think anything much of it. But the next time I went there, it was shut, it was closed. So, but the bank never never manifested. So, when I looked deeply into it, the houses that manifested, they were already on the pipeline. They'd already been paid. So that job was already going to happen anyway. So that one manifested, but the one with the bank, maybe the banks were thinking around that time to put a branch there, but then there was a crash, recession came, so that did not manifest. So it's not everything in the future that manifests. And what I also found is that they're all, when you're in the future or whether you're in the past, they're all experienced in the here and now, which means that you are not actually in the past. All you're accessing is a memory of the past. Now, my method of getting to traveling to the future and past is I use astral projection as a springboard to gain access into the acacia, and that's what I use with the power of intent. Like for example, you have an astral projection, you find yourself on the astral plane, you can make the intent, you can just stay where you are and intend that I want to go 200 years in the future, I want to go 400 years and wait to be moved. And that's the method that I use, and it's always worked.
Thanks, Andrew. Brett?
I was just going to talk about Smooth Cruise mentioned Astral Club, this YouTuber named Rick, and he does time travel a lot. And it's basically what Andrew was talking about as well, where he'd go into the past and that was always set, and he can interact with the data. Like he could inhabit some kind of dinosaur and feel what that dinosaur felt like. But when it came to the future, he could go into near futures, but he wouldn't be able to interact with anything. And I believe that's because that it was data that was like semi-set or maybe something that was going to happen. But then he would go to far-flung futures, like thousands of years, millions of years, wherever, and in a different galaxy or something. And he's able to interact with the beings and everything there, like they could see him and he could talk to them. And I think it's because of, like Andrew was saying, probability, right? He's dealing with data that's so far flung out there that might not even, there's no telling if that'll ever be a possible future, that it's just kind of like he's interacting with a model, an energy model of something.
That's it. The idea.
Right. And so it's not necessarily that it's going to come to pass, but it's just that model there that you can interact with. It's just raw data at that point.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brett. Georgina, I see your hand up. I just want to mention something else. I'm not doing a meetup on Wednesday, I forgot to mention, because if anybody wants to join Mike's meditation meetup, he does the Monroe Institute material, and that'll be this Wednesday on the Austin Astral Projection site. So I'm skipping Wednesday. Georgina?
Right. My experiences are there was a very rough sea in 1953 the North Sea. There was a North Sea surge, tremendous seas, and I was on a trawler, and I was watching this guy working on the ropes and chains, and 1 second he was there, the next second he'd gone. It wasn't me, it was him. It was man overboard, and I was able to look it up in annals over the next few days, and it showed on that night from that boat. I got his name, that he was lost overboard. That was one, and the other one I'll mention is during the last war. You know how the dams got blown up in Germany. I was in a Wellington bomber, observing the front gunner. He could see down, and I could see with him the damage that it had done to one of the dams. We got hit by flak, but we managed to get the aeroplane home. But that must have been out of body. It can't have been just surely imagination.
The bouncing betties, right?
Sorry?
Bouncing betties to blow up the dams. They dropped the bouncing betties, skipped along, and then they settled.
Yeah. Bouncing bombs. Barnes Wallis, yes.
Yeah, yes. Usually, when you're in the mortal, what they call the mortal spirit body, you observe it. You observe it as an observer. You're not part of it. You are an observer. You are watching. Nobody can see you, but you are seeing it. You are seeing everything. That body is called the immortal spirit. It's not the astral body. That's the body. That's the body you use for out of body. For out of body, the same body that you can see things on the physical plane in real life is the same body that goes to the past and future. Because it can operate on all levels. It can operate on the astral plane, it can operate on the physical plane, and it operates on the mental plane. That's why it's called the immortal spirit. People call it soul. They call it soul travel. But because they know it's different from when you do an astral projection. Because astral projection only takes you to the astral plane.
Yeah.
From my experience, it doesn't. I've not been able to astral project, and I can astral project into the astral version of my room, but there will be differences. There will be something that is not right, and that usually tells me that, oh yeah, this is an astral projection. Or if I don't see my body, on the bed, my bed is empty, I know this is an astral projection. This is and it's not a mental projection or out of body experience, but an inner experience.
Thank you for putting me right.
Sorry?
Thank you for putting me right. I didn't know.
It's because I've experienced them. If I've not experienced them, I'm not going to be able to give you any. Won't be able to give any advice. But once you see, the thing about these, the thing I found out about these projections is that once your experience tells me what body you've used just by the experience that you had. I can say, well, that's not astral body straight away,
Right, as you're so well up, I was once at an open mediumship meeting, and I sat down and I got into my head a story about this guy servicing a Spitfire, and his life story and his father's life story. But when I sat back down again, 2 Spitfires came out the wall straight at me. Nobody else saw them, but I did.
Right.
You saw a memory of that.
Yeah.
Julie?
Excuse me if I'm saying something that has already been mentioned. My son has called me away more than once, frustrating me. I'm like, I'm missing some really good questions. What do you need? Anyway, Andrew, you've mentioned the different bodies more than once. If you have the chance, it would be awesome if you could just write up a quick table of and put it in the chat sometime of, okay, this body is this body's that, this body's this realm, this body's for that realm, or whatever. Because you just mentioned some, and I would love that, but because it helps me, because I'm such a beginner and everything is, I don't know what to make of some things. Like the other day when I went out, I felt like I did exited my body, but I did not see my body in the bed. So what does that mean again? What did I do then? I mean, I'm like, that's why I questioned myself. I thought, well, maybe this is a dream then, because why am I not seeing myself?
Yeah, you're not seeing yourself. You will not see yourself in your body because you're not on the physical plane. You're in what they call. I'm not going to use the word etheric because that's confusing. It's your pranic. It's called the pranic body. Pranic. The life force that you see flowing around us. Well, that body is what props up the physical body. If that body should leave our physical body, we'll be dead.
Wait, so yeah, I'm still trying to figure out. So are you saying, because people use different terminologies, are you saying maybe I was just on the astral realm immediately?
You are not even on the astral realm. You're in the what they call the etheric realm. For you to get to the astral realm, you have to open the door and walk out of that room or fly out of the window to get outside, because the door in that room, the door that leads outside it represents a gateway or
Okay,
a portal.
I'm confused because some say, look, you can go out your physical door of your physical room and walk down your hallway and go see your cat. And then
That's the mental projection. That's the immortal spirit projection. That's the one where you can go through the walls and go through the door or go through the ceiling. That's the body that can do that.
But you don't call that the etheric body. That's not the etheric.
No, that's not the etheric body. The etheric body is too heavy. It's too. It's not. It's very heavy and cumbersome to move. The astral body is lighter. That's the one that floats. Once you're in that body that floats, that's the astral body. The mental body, it doesn't actually have. There's no limbs to it. It's just like a round ball.
Okay, so
yes.
so I'm confused because I feel like I've for sure experienced the mental body because I was a little misty wisp of cloud. I'm assuming that's mental.
Yeah, when you're in a mental body, there's a big difference because you're in a state of bliss. There's a state.
Well, I wasn't in a state of bliss. I was just like in a state of nothing almost. I felt it was very neutral. I heard my body breathing below me. I could hear my physical body breathing. So I felt like I was still in my room because I could hear myself.
Okay. Yeah, that I've experienced that where I've heard myself snoring. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Julie, maybe the next question here that comes up in the book here might help out a little bit. Okay. This question is, what is my form while out of body?
Yeah, exactly.
Monroe says here, think of your second or immediate non-physical body as much like gelatin, which we talked about, that has been removed from a mold. It remembers a human form and thus is near identical. The longer one is separated from the physical, the weaker the memory becomes unless reinforced. Time distance also seems to be a factor. The farther away from the physical, such memory or its effectiveness becomes less. If left to its own devices, you may become a ball, a teardrop, a small cloud, or just a blob. All of this can be bypassed by slipping out of the second body immediately after separation and becoming clear, undiluted energy. You can always grow a hand and arm if you need one. I don't know if that makes it any easier for you.
Yeah, I don't know.
If
Brett is raising hand, Susan raised her hand. If any of you have any.
Yeah, I'll let Brett.
Please.
Go ahead, Brett.
I just wanted to say not to worry about it. I mean, there's so many different labels that we want to put on it to try to understand, but in the end, it's just something that I don't think you really need to bother with at the moment, because every time you go out, something could be different, right? Your body doesn't have to be there. Your body could be laying in a completely different position. It could be on the other side of the room. The bed could be in a different place. You might not have the same furniture. You might look in the mirror and not see anything. So
part of, because of the way my brain works, a part of my joy is making sense of it.
Thank you.
That's my personality.
that's going to be kind of hard for some of
Well,
this
that's
stuff.
what journalists do. If you're an out-of-body journalist and you know, people who are experts at it
Okay.
start to make sense of things a little bit. I would love to be able to do that for others.
Yes. Well, I found if you take that attitude, because a lot of people have taken that attitude, and that is the reason why there's a lot of confusion on the pages of what constitutes what. But what I say is that your experience would normally define what body you're using. So that which means that we have to familiarize ourselves with the different multidimensional body we have.
Yeah.
Some are some have got form, and some of them haven't got form, are formless. Like the immortal spirit is kind of like there are no arms, there's no legs, and you don't experience fear in that body. You do not know fear. So you're in a body that you
experience that we can transform or change our the body we're using at will.
Yeah, but transform it to what?
To whatever we might need for the experience we want to experience.
Well, it depends on what plane we are. Every plane has got its own matter. So when you say you're going to transform yourself, are you going to transform yourself? As long as it's in the when you transform yourself, it's in the matter of the plane that you're in. I mean, I've not been able to shape shift or transform myself, but I've been aware that I've got different bodies.
I would like to add, if I could cut in, I'm hearing you're focused on the part about seeing your physical body or not seeing your physical body in the bed, right? So I've heard of people who see an indention where the body would be. And so that alone tells me that, and I've heard a lot of other correlating evidence that people don't wanna, because they have a subconscious association with being dead if they were to see their body. And so some part of their psyche protects them from that and just kind of blurs it out or deletes it. So they see through it, and therefore they look over, they see the real physical bed, but they're not seeing the body that should be there. And they get a little
in my
weirded out.
case, I could have sworn, like, again, I'm not sure if I'm putting, when I get back to my body, I think my suspicion is I'm having trouble downloading everything properly into my physical brain, because I think I'm misunderstanding things after the fact. I might be having experiences, much better experiences than what I'm able to download into my physical brain after I had the
That's
experience.
the most, yes, that's the most common problem actually, is remembering it. Yep. I mean, supposedly we go out every single night. We should have memories at least a little bit of every single night, but we don't,
feel like
right?
I am pretty much.
Yeah.
It's just like, man. But yeah, I feel like this one time I deliberately looked at myself. I tried to look at back at myself, and in that moment I'm like, oh no, that's going to make me go back to my body. But I did it anyway. I didn't see myself, and I saw my husband. So I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. Why am I not seeing my body? So that's why I thought, well, maybe I'm having a dream when I came back. So it's really confusing, because I feel like I'm definitely, you know, like I'm going through the process of leaving the body. I feel conscious when I'm leaving the body, and pretty alert. And then when I get out of my body, I don't feel as alert and conscious, and I don't know why that's happening.
I've had the good luck of having both back to back. One where I'm really present and it's very vivid, I'm very awake. And then the next week I'm in the same spot and I'm dreamy, floaty, not so sure I'm really there. And the only difference was my attention to energy work that week. I was doing good breath work. I was doing everything right, 30 minutes a day by the book. And then the next week I got cocky and I didn't. And it matters.
Okay, interesting. Wow.
Andrew?
Yeah, just going back to what the previous person said. You said you didn't see your body on the bed, but you saw your husband's body. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, that body is his etheric form. That's the body that we do our dreaming in. If you had woken him up, from where he was sleeping and he'd opened his eyes and you had spoken to him, you would have helped him in projecting. Because I've done that with my wife once before. I projected and she was laying on the bed next to me and I woke her up and she could recollect.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that. I still need to work on my own. I'm so like a
that's how you help someone to project.
Clumsy child in this situation still.
Now, if you've got to that stage where you're already awake in your etheric form, and that body you awoke in is actually our true form. That's the spiritual part. It's part of that. It's part of the physical body.
Mm.
But it's the kind of like what we call the chi part or that part. That's the form. That's why you have all those entities wanting because it carries the life force. That's why you have that room, that plane is where where you see all those entities that visit people. Not outside the door. Outside the door, that's the astral plane.
But okay, so you're saying
find out it's much brighter outside than it is in the house, inside the room.
But so if I go outside the door and I'm on an astral plane, how would I go outside the door and be on, if I wanted to, just be in my own house and look at my cat, for example? How do I control that?
If you want to see your cat, you mean to come onto the mental? That if you're going to do that one, then you got up. When you get out of that plane, it means you've got up on the first stop. You understand? You're supposed to go a bit further away from there for you to arrive at where you can say where you can accomplish what you want to do, because you're already out. You're already out of your body in that experience where you're seeing your husband's etheric form asleep on the bed.
You say that would be the first stop? I'm at the first stop?
Yeah, that's the first place. That's the first point of call before you ascend to the astral plane. Ascending to the astral plane is opening that door and walking out or going through the window.
Well, I mean, I'm interested in going to the astral plane for sure. But what if I just want to go down and visit my niece and say, hey, look, I did it. Because she's got some abilities. She might be able to see me. So, but that's not the astral plane, right? That's this.
Well, it is still possible for you to accomplish that.
Pardon me?
Yeah. It is still possible for you to accomplish that. If you can accomplish seeing your husband laying next to you, you can definitely accomplish seeing your niece.
Oh.
Maybe not, but you'll probably be on the astral form. Because I've done it before where I've knocked on someone's door before and I've seen them in their etheric form inside the room. They were half asleep, and we made eye contact. Then all of a sudden she became lucid and she saw me. Her eyes became wide open and I could see that she saw me and she recognized who I was and she called me by my name. And I was able to. When I now woke up, I called her up. My husband picked up the phone, but before I could even speak, she was on the background. I saw you.
You were in your astral form, did you say?
Yes, because remember, I'm not inside the house. I'm outside, looking in. So imagine you were in your house where you saw your husband, and then I stood by the window looking in at you. Yes.
So when you go outside of your house, you're always in the astral form?
Well, that is exactly what when dead relatives want to come and visit you, that's the mode they use. They come through the door and you'll be able to see them.
All right, everybody, I need to close it out for the night, the meeting. I want to thank everybody for coming and sharing. And I was going to say, Julie, you're going to have to wait and buy Andrew's book when it comes out.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have to take his course. He's got a lot of info.
Yeah,
and you're just sucking it up, Julie, so keep going at it.